Hi, welcome back to Chem with Kim. In this session, we're working question 5 of the CSEC Chemistry Paper for January 2024. Now, this is an organic chemistry question, and we're going to just get right into it. Please watch to the end because there's something that needs to be clarified. As usual, if you find value, remember to like, share, and if you have not subscribed, consider doing so. You may book a tutorial session at chemwithchem@gmail.com. Figure 7 shows the fully displayed structures of compound B and compound C, which are from different homologous series. Part 1 of A, 5A. State the name of compound B and compound C. So, compound B, from what is there, it has 2 carbons, and there's a functional group, OH, so that's coming from the alcohol group, so that is ethanol. Now, compound C has 3 carbons. One is from the functional group COOH. That carbon is counted as carbon 1. We have another carbon, so there are 3. So that will be propanoic acid. And we kind of jump the gun in a sense, state the functional group in compound B. The functional group is the hydroxyl group, HYDROXYL. Which of the 2 compounds, B or C, is more soluble in water? This would be compound C. The alcohol would be soluble, but the carboxylic acid is more soluble, given that it has the C double bond OH group. This part is slightly negative. There's polarity there. And then this part of the OH is slightly negative. The H is slightly positive. So we have 2 sections of it that's polar. So that would interact well with the water molecule, which it itself is also polar, like dissolves, like as we said in question 1 earlier. Part C, compound B is made during wine production using yeast. Name the process used to make compound B. That's fermentation. Part 2 of C, describe the purpose of yeast in the production of wine. Now, yeast produces enzymes that break down complex sugars to simple sugars. Then the zymase is used to change the simple sugars to ethanol and carbon dioxide. So this is just a little diagram showing what could be considered a complex sugar or just a partial structure, and the yeast breaks it down first into simple sugars, mainly glucose, and then the zymase, which is in the yeast, acts on the simple sugar, the glucose, to ferment it, to cause it to form ethanol and carbon dioxide. They want us to write a balanced chemical equation, including state symbol, to show how compound B, that's ethanol, can be made during the production of wine. So we put that there, and it's good to also put around 37 degrees Celsius as well as optimum pH, because pH affects the activity of the enzyme, the zymase. So that needs to be written as well. Around 37 degrees Celsius and optimum pH, and that would give us our full marks. So we're going to stick a pin right here. We're going to go ahead and answer the question as it's written in the form that it is, and then we're going to come back and do a little review and see what should have been there, because of course we want to be clear. There should be no confusion, but if there's a fault with the question, the examinee, the student, would get the mark in a case like that. So let us explore. First, we'll answer what is being asked of us. So we'll draw ethyl propanoate. So we have our alcohol portion drawn last. All right, and just, they didn't ask this, but I like to do this. I like to identify my ester linkage just to help me to sharpen up. Now, that's what they say happens. Compound B and water are formed from the reaction between compound B and compound C, which is correct. That is fine. Then they're asking us, they're saying now that compound D can be used in the production of polymers. This is where we have the problem. All right, because compound D as it is is a short chain ester, and esters are not really used in the production of polymers. Now I am going to answer the question which follows. So this is the preamble up to the question. The question that they're really asking us is to define the term polymer. So the part that we have a problem with is here in the preamble, and it will come, or the introduction to what they're actually asking, and it will come a little later on. But they say we must define polymer, so we're going to define polymer. So a polymer is a long chain molecule that is formed from the joining of at least 50 monomer units. So it's 50 or more monomer units. Some books will tell you many monomer units. So that will give us our 2 marks. So based on what I said earlier, then compound D would not engage in any form of polymerization. The only way that compound D would engage in any form of polymerization is if this actual compound here is not compound D. This would mean that our question would need to be rewritten in part D, part 1 of D. The preamble to that says compound D is formed from the reaction between compound B and compound C. Now, for us to get something that will take part in polymerization, then we could actually take compound D, which we know is ethanol, and let's put that up. We could take compound B, the ethanol, and then we would have to convert the ethanol. We would have to dehydrate it by converting it to ethene, and we'd get water vapor. So the question I believe there was, and I've checked with some of my colleagues here, and they tend to agree as well. We'd get some water coming off with this. Of course, I'm going to put the conditions. So we could do 170 degrees Celsius with excess concentrated sulfuric acid, or heat it with alumina, heat it to about 300 degrees Celsius. So those are the conditions that we would use, and that would give us our compound D. So the only way that they could ask us to state what kind of polymerization compound D takes part in is if part 1 or the preamble changes. If they change it, I think it should have been compound D and water are formed, correct? From a reaction of compound B, but not a reaction of compound C. I'll say that again. This question, for us to go through with it, compound D and water are formed from a reaction of, so we could say compound D and water are formed from a reaction of compound B, and we'll leave it right there, but not a reaction of compound B and C. Compound B and C react to give you an ester, which can be misleading. So it should be a reaction of compound B. So when we do it that way, we would end up with our compound D, which is our ethene. That's an alkene. And then we go ahead with our polymer part. So the next part of this, in the last part of this, now we could answer that our alkene here, ethene undergoes addition polymerization. and that would give us our full marks. All right. So say what you think. Well, say what you think about part D. This was it's not a boo-boo, it's just can be misleading, even though it's just a change of a few words that would make it not pose a problem or a problem for students answering. It can be a little misleading because when compound B and C react, we actually can get compound D and ester, and we also get water. But the ester, the problem with that is that the ester, as we showed earlier, the ester does not undergo polymerization. It's not used in the production of polymers. Now we can use esters to do other things, especially the ester drawn earlier, ethyl propanoate. But in this case, this is what we should have. So of course, we have our definition for polymer as we did earlier. And we know that the type of polymerization that the molecule above, compound B, would take part in is addition polymerization. All right, remember to like, share. If you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. You can always book a tutorial session with Chem at gmail.com. Copper later.